Was there anybody in your class at school who you hated and got revenge on? Copied it from a post of mine a couple years ago. At my high school, kids loved to embarrass kids taking shoots, so they would kick open the store door and laugh at them. My junior year, some kids a year below me did it to some nerdy kid thinking he would not do anything back. Until he came into the lunchroom with his crap on a paper towel and slapped the kid who kicked the door open in the face with it. That was pretty much the end of that joke. This is easily the best thing in this thread. Was on a school music tour and this kid who bullied me in class decided to throw stuff at me on the coach. I kept all the stuff and waited for him to get off the bus and threw it back at him. Bearing in mind I had avoided confrontation for 2 years, I finally cracked. He punched me in the arm. I punched him in the chest hard as I could and I saw tears well up in his eyes as he staggered off. But that's not the end. None of the teachers saw this fight, so it continued. Myself and 3 friends were in our room before dinner and this kid and his mates decide to raid our room. They nick a few packets of candy etc. and run out. Myself and friends barricaded the door and then went out via the balcony and got a teacher. The bully and his mates were caught trying to bash our door down. Their rooms got searched for our stuff and the teachers found booze. They were 15. So illegal, various drugs and a blown up toilet, as in destroyed. Their room was wrecked and it was about £5,000, $7,500 of damage. The bully and his friends were suspended and had to pay for the damage and banned from future school trips. But there's still more. We were in Malta, so they couldn't really be sent home. On the last day we went to the beach. Myself, my roommates and a few older students hired out some pedal boats and went out on the ocean. The bully and his mates decided to follow us. We were just chilling in the sun when the bully's boat comes over. They stop a few meters away and swim onto ours. Full-blown fight kicks off. My teacher had hired a jet ski kinda thing and comes racing over. Just as I'm pushing the bully off the boat, the teacher stops and sends waves flying. The bully slips and hits his jaw on the boat. Wasn't broken though. Him and his mates swim off and leave us alone. Get back to school the next day and they're in deep crap. Banned from 6th form, 11th and 12th grade, and in isolation for 2 weeks after their suspension and paying the damages. It was glorious. That's awesome. During 5th grade, a kid harassed me mainly about my weight. I usually ignored him. While we were walking up a hill to our art class, he noticed I was on my crappy phone. He took it from me and found a picture of my sister. He started saying how much he'd love to frick her. I shoved him down and grabbed my phone, then continued walking up the hill without a word. A lot of the time when he physically attacked me, I would silently push him away and a teacher would get intervened. Well, this time there wasn't a teacher. Pushing him down max P the skid off. He ran at me and I turned around, stuck my foot in the air, and pushed him backwards. By now my friends had stopped walking and were laughing their asses off while I calmly stared at this kid who had caused silent tears to be shed for a year. He stood up, reached in his pocket, and pulled out a knife. I couldn't run faster than him. I knew that. So I'd have to seriously fight this guy now. Something about realizing this and thinking of how much of a douche he was and how he had really hurt my feelings for the past year peed me off enough to literally tackle him and start punching the crap out of him. I just went to town, pulverizing his face. I stood up and realized I was bleeding. The sucker stabbed me with the knife, but only like the very tip. It felt numb with pain, and even though it was small, my friends started flipping out. They ran up the hill and got a teacher while my bully rolled around in pain and I stood clutching my stab wound that was really just a cut. After we were both in the principal's office, the principal saw I was stabbed and figured I was acting out of self-defense. Logan got a few months in juvie while the girls fawned over big tough me. It was great. High freaking five, man. You took on a guy with a knife. That takes some balls. When I was a freshman, there was a sophomore who would bully me in our pay class. Toward the end of the year, the class was in the locker room changing. While I had my shirt over my face, this guy slapped my face. I finally lost it. I immediately chased after him and shoved him. This caused him to lose his balance and fall face first into a row of lockers, the kind with padlocks exposed. I felt vindicated for finally standing up for myself, but the best part was hearing all the other kids in the class ridicule him for being punked by a freshman. Nothing great. 6th grade I wasn't the most beautiful girl, so I was picked on because I was overweight. All the time the popular girls would pick on me. So one day I noticed the most popular girl in class had a tissue sticking out of her bra. She started picking on me and I instantly came back with "I'm going to go cry about it. Can I borrow a tissue from your bra?" in front of our whole class during indoor recess. Instant tears. Never seen that girl cry before. It was the best moment of my 6th grade year. Stupid comeback, but it was a hitter. Never felt like such. The best part of this story is how the last sentence just dissolves into nonsense. It makes it extra funny somehow. The kids in my neighborhood were always pretty brutal towards me. I had a long stretch of awkward years, and one day early in high school I got caught up after the final bell of the day and was rushing to make my bus home. I was running in a full sprint and saw the bus pulling away. I ran after it, only to see the ringleader of my neighborhood miscreants flipping me off and throwing papers at me from the back window of the bus, and the rest of the neighborhood kids laughing at me. They never stopped the bus for me. That same kid has since had several DUIs and a laundry list of misdemeanors and now works at one of the area's only full-service gas stations. The feeling I get when I go out of my way in my shiny Audi to that gas station just to special request him to pump my gas is the best revenge I'll ever have. I just fist pumped in real life. You bet. A couple years ago, I'm in my early 30s. The guy my cousin just married asked me if I knew his co-worker, who was a couple years ahead of me at my high school. I sure did. He was a monster and tormented me daily throughout elementary school. I didn't see him after elementary school for a few years, and when I was a freshman in high school I had vague thoughts of kicking the crap out of him until I discovered, sad to say, he was huge and jacked. Not happening. Fun fact, one thing he did, when he was in 6th grade, was TP, spray paint, and break windows in the house of the one African American family who had moved to the neighborhood. This was in the Northeast in the early 90s. Real winner here. Anyway, I told my cousin-in-law that I did know him, but didn't have much to say, and I stopped talking. I didn't want to start badmouthing someone my cousin-in-law might like, especially since this was a new family member I'd be seeing the rest of my life. So I didn't say anything, and that was the end of the story. Or so I thought. Fast forward another year or two, and I'm having drinks with a cousin and her husband. He says, "Oh, by the way, you really hated, didn't you?" I said, "Why yes, I sure did." He said he could tell because, even having only met me a year or so before that, he knew I was positive and effusive enough in general that if the only thing I can say about someone is that I know them, and I won't say anything positive or interesting, that's a bad sign. He was right. Not that I had realized it at the time. Anyway, as it turns out, the cousin-in-law was not just this guy's co-worker, but his boss, and had been doing a pretty crummy job. The cousin-in-law was wondering if he should keep on the staff, and he was wondering if I'd have something good to say about him. When I absolutely did not, he let him go. I can't say I did cartwheels of joy, but I have to admit I'm not sorry it happened. People always told me that the bullies would get theirs eventually, and it's only occasionally true. So knowing that I played a small part in getting back at this guy is really fulfilling. TLDR. Without knowing it, I was giving a thumbs up or thumbs down on whether my childhood tormentor should get fired. I gave him the thumbs down and still came out looking like the nice guy. I like how this works out just by you being really upright and true to yourself. No violence or anything. Good one. Got a lot of fat jokes from this one kid throughout 7 of my years in school. Got them all the time from most people, but there was real hate and venom behind this one kid's insults. During a biology practical I hid a calzone in his sandwich and kept half an eye on him during the lunch hour. Judging by his reaction, he got a good bite of it before realizing. After that people were drawing eyes on his books, notes, making jokes about it. He never heard the end of it. I know this makes me lower than him, but I have no regrets. Got a lot of fat jokes. I had a calzone in his sandwich. Taking your eye out and putting it in his sandwich seems a bit extreme. There was this girl in high school that was your quintessential popular bee that everyone really hated. She was probably the meanest person I've ever seen up close. 10 years later she works at Denny's. I go in as often as possible to drum up casual conversation about my life, and then over tip as much as possible. This butthole kid in my school when I was younger bullied me since 7th grade. Just the regular stuff you'd expect from teenage douchebags. Gay bashing, calling me a F and so on. I'm truly convinced he's in the closet and secretly obsessed with me because he just goes out of his way to be a dong. Quote, I think all gay people should be put on their own island away from everyone else. Anyway, once upon a time in math class when the teacher wasn't paying attention, he'd throw dimes and nickels at me from across the classroom, and usually miss because he has crappy aim. I'm not the confrontational type at all, and have barely spoken in the class, but this pee me off to no end. On a particular day, one of these dimes hit me in the back of the head. The entire class was quiet, and I just blew up. I turned around and said at the top of my lungs, in front of the teacher and all, if you throw another freaking coin at me I'm going to get up and punch you in the freaking face. Got no response, and everyone in the room was staring at me, so I continued, you're tough enough to throw it when I'm not looking, but won't admit it when I call you out. I don't know what came over me, but the best part? The teacher stared for a moment before commenting, well said, and resumed teaching. He hasn't done anything to me since. Moral of the story, stand up for yourself if anyone ever picks on you. Bullies thrive on silence and their biggest fear is being called out, and I regret not doing it sooner. My male classmate was always a dong, a practical joker, but he picked on me the most. He threw spitballs from the back of the class to me. I sat at the front, put twisted stapler bullets on my chair at every opportunity, called me names, sometimes pushed me around and usually got me humiliated in my class. So one day during class he was doing his usual spitballs. It was a good day for him, because it landed on my hair. From that moment, something within me snapped and I got up calmly from my chair. With a mechanical pencil in my hand, I stabbed him squarely at the back of his hand. He looked mortified but he took it like a champ. The lead of the pencil broke and stuck to his skin. I must have stabbed pretty deep. There was some droplets of blood from the wound. Before he could do anything the teacher came in and started class, so he couldn't excuse himself. When class ended, I saw him bolt towards the bathroom. My friend leaned over and whispered to me, you know that he likes you, right? I just sat there feeling half guilty and half victorious. Welp, he didn't disturb me much after that. Oh, and this was when we were 15. Oh, TLDR. Felt like Arnold and Helga from Hey Arnold, but with a little blood. My only tattoo is a piece of pencil lead stuck in my arm. He probably still sees it and thinks about you. You'll be with him forever. Yeah, back in kindergarten, this punk kid would tease me for having a weird name. So one day during nap time I was sitting at my desk, head down, when I saw the kid heading out to the bathroom. When I heard him returning, I casually stuck out my leg. He tripped, face planted, got up, lost a tooth and started crying. I smiled and went back to my nap. That's pretty thug for kindergarten. During my junior year, there was this B we'll call M in my gym class. She would single out a few people to torture with her minions, and I was one of the lucky few. She would shoot dirty looks, call people names, single them out in games like dodgeball, all that kind of stuff. One day, she decided to tell her super senior douchebag friend to single me out in floor hockey, and he, purposely, hacked sticks with me and smashed my wrist. It ended up only being sprained, but I was P nonetheless. A few weeks go by and we start playing dodgeball. I was going 1-on-3 with some senior boys and then they hit me, so I started walking off the court. Then this BM starts yelling at me, get off the freaking court, you're out B and all that stuff. And I was like, yeah, I'm fully aware of that. If you weren't such a dumbass you would notice that's exactly what I'm doing. And then she proceeds to call me a B and stuff. And I know that was a bitchy comment, but all my rage throughout the year was pent up and I was about to release it. I walked over to her and said, okay, what the heck is your problem? I've done nothing to you, so I really don't understand why you're acting like this towards me. Then she just starts laughing with her little B friends, and I start walking away. She then says, yeah, you better walk away. Rage ensues. I did a 180 and punched her square in the temple, knocking her to the ground. This is the first time I have ever gotten into a physical altercation with anyone, and I'm not an easily angered person. So of course, everyone was surprised, and the teacher didn't even notice until her friend was like, "Naz just punched him in the face." What the frick, they got a security guard to take me to the discipline office, and he was like, "Okay, we're gonna go to the nurse first." And I was like, why? I punched her. He was all surprised that I didn't hurt my hand or anything, and that I actually knew how to throw a punch, and gave me a high five. Throughout the next few days, I had people I barely talked to coming up to me and giving me hugs and high fives, telling me how they've wanted to punch her in the face for so long and were glad someone actually did it. TLDR. Punched a bee in the face, became school hero. Got bullied in secondary school. Eventually I had enough and pushed him down a flight of stairs and then walked into class like nothing happened. I was picked on continuously by, I guess, what most would call a bully. 10 years later he apologized for being such a douche and I accepted the apology and moved on with my life. I sure showed him. When I was in 4th grade, this annoying 3rd grader kept messing with me. He would run up behind me and try to knock me down all the time. Especially since he was just a 3rd grader that was trying to bully me. It peed me off, and I decided to end it before it got out of control. I saw him standing there doing nothing like an butthole one day at recess and remember how much he had been bothering me. I started running as fast as I could straight at him from across the playground, and knocked him flat on his back. He got up and tackled me, and we rolled around on the ground wrestling for a little while before one of the recess monitors saw us. I got in trouble and had to write "I will not fight" or something like that 25 times during one recess. He never bothered me again after that, though. Standing there doing nothing like an butthole one day at recess. WTF. I guess I spent a few recesses being an butthole myself. There was another boy who was continuously picking on me. Then one day we were all playing basketball and he started again. I was so pissed that when he turned around I kicked his butt, literally, so hard that he went up in the air and then landed on the ground. Even my foot hurt quite a bit, so hard did I kick him. He stood up, then went 50-100 meters away while clearly being in pain and with tears in his eyes, and then came back after 15 minutes and played further like nothing happened. Never bugged me again after that. I had a bully in middle school who bothered me since I was a 4th grader. He was one of many, but none of them ever had the balls to pull something physical. The last week of my final year at that middle school, he decides to pull some crap and starts talking to me in an attempt to get a rise out of me. In any case, it worked. I was fed up with everyone's crap. That on top of being forced to attend graduation from a school I despised with a fiery passion caused me to drop all sense of civility and composure. It just so happened he had his mouth wide open when I spit at his face. I don't know where I got him, but I hope it was in the mouth. I figured this might actually get him to throw a punch so I'd have an excuse to go freaking crazy and bite his ear off or something. After letting one rip, he sat there dumbfounded for a little while. He then walked away and came back 5 minutes later threatening to kick my butt. He never did anything. I never really believed the saying "success is the best revenge" until recently. I was extremely skinny and weak in school, and got a lot of crap from bullies. It was not a good time in my life at all. I did okay through school but somehow ended up with a decent office job making good money. I'm proud of what I've become, but I don't really see myself as any more special than anyone else. One day I was on my lunch break from work and stopped at a gas station to grab a snack and a drink. I got my stuff and walked up to the register. Behind it was Chris, let's call him. Chris liked to throw me against the lockers at school, throw stuff at me in the hallways, and just mess with me, despite my never really knowing him all that well. He was just overall a bad person, and from things I heard after I left the school, he continued being a waste of space. So here was Chris. I was 21 when I ran into him. He had to be around 23 or so. He worked at a gas station, and from what I had heard through the grapevine was still doing a ton of drugs and whatnot. The next part of the story could go with me saying "remember me, shithead," but it doesn't. I didn't say anything. I'm not a bully. He didn't recognize me from the look of things, so I just let him live his life. I just kept that victory in the back of my head, that occasionally the universe does things right, and bad people don't amount to much. In middle school, I was the shortest kid in class. Today, I'm 6'3" and was the easy target for bullying. One guy in particular stood out as particularly dickish. Let's call him Philip. Philip happened to live in the same neighborhood as me, about 10 houses down the street. The thing to keep in mind here is that in elementary school, he and I used to be friends, but we fell into different crowds as we grew up. Despite our growing animosity, our parents were still friends and neighborly, oblivious to the fact that young Philip enjoyed borrowing my lunch money and play fighting after school. He was suspended twice for bullying crap and started to develop psychopathic tendencies, coming very close to expulsion at one point. Philip's parents ended up divorcing in high school and took split custody of the 3 kids. Philip moved to Texas with his dad. His mother and 2 daughters stayed in Florida. You can kind of see where this is going. I dated his younger sister in senior year of high school. We never had sex, mind you, just dated for a month or so. But what's important is what happened in that month. Philip's parents were talking about reconciling for the benefit of the kids. On Thanksgiving, Philip and his dad came home for what was supposed to be the trial run for reconciliation. Everyone was to be on their best behavior, all smiles, etc etc. I was invited to the dinner, and Philip had no clue I would be there. When he walked in and saw me, he instantly turned red and was visibly filled with rage. He went into a frenzy right there, demanding I leave his house. He came up to me and shoved me. When his sister informed him we were dating, he lost it. He punched me in the jaw and started screaming he was going to kill me. He grabbed a carving knife from the table and it was evident he intended to stab me. Everything was stopped by 2 words. Get out. His mom said that in an icy cold whisper that still chills me. Silence. In a seething voice, she told Philip and his father that they were to never set foot in her house again. Then she looked at Philip and said, "You are the reason why our lives are crap. You are the reason why our marriage has been ruined. And you are the reason why I will never let you back into my life." No words were said after that. They left, and I never saw Philip again. TLDR. Indirectly cost my bully his parents' marriage. Well, that got dark pretty quickly. One day in 2nd grade, a girl stole the prize I got for winning a game of math bingo. She just went into my backpack and stole it. I told my teacher about it and she made a whole classroom search. It was in her backpack. As it turns out, there was tons of stolen loot in there. She later transferred schools. In high school, this girl wiped her feet against the back of my jacket. Being an awkwardly shy kid, I cried silently inside and watched on as her friends laughed. About 5 minutes later, she tripped walking down the bleachers and fell on her face. If ever there is such a thing called cosmic revenge, that was it. Back in 8th grade, there was a kid who thought he was the toughest gangster to ever live. He was a tiny guy, about 5 feet tall. He would always talk about how he beat some other kids up, and how awesome his gang-banging brother was. I have no idea why. Kind of a stupid thing to brag about. Anyway, one day we were in the gym playing soccer and he kept calling me a P to try himself look tough. At the time I was about 6 feet tall. I got so fed up with his crap that I picked him up by his neck and walked about 5 feet to the soccer goal and threw him into it. And the teacher never looked up from his laptop. He never said crap to me again. In 5th grade this kid would always pick on me. Let's just call him Jason. Every day during PE he would always make fun of me and call me a weakling. I was fairly small and knew myself that I was not very strong and was usually always picked last during dodgeball, basketball etc etc. Well, one day after months of him just always making fun of me, he was in front of me making fun like he normally does and I just decided to kick him as hard as I could in the balls in the boys' locker room. He started screaming and crying and I told him to never mess with me again. And he never did after that. After that incident though I got more crap from a lot of people because hitting a kid in the balls is really cheap, I guess it was. But he should have never fricked with me to begin with. Wherever you are, Jason, thanks for making my life a living heck for 2 years during middle school and I hope from that point forward you never picked on anyone else. Frick you. That's my purse. I don't know you. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.